Good morning, everyone, and here we are again on Sunday. We've got an exciting study going on. We're talking about the impossible evolution, and we've got these 4 series we're doing, talking about evolution and how the world holds to it, and yet it's impossible. Last time we talked about how there can be no God according to them, and yet there is no way you can get what we have or keep it going without someone who is over all of this. So obviously that's wrong. And today we're talking about overpopulation, which they say the world is overpopulated and there's no way that we can continue to do this. We're going to destroy the earth and we need to do something about it. And so in order to establish whether that's right or wrong, we need to look and see what the evidence shows. Now, of course, there's nothing in the Bible about overpopulation. God never talks about overpopulation. What he does talk about is that we're supposed to go out and populate. Let's take a look at Genesis 1 and verse 28. Actually, starts in 27, the thought, but God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. 28. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in the number, fill the earth and subdue it. So now, that's pretty fascinating, isn't it? Fill the earth. What? Overpopulation? No, fill the earth. Now, look what he says again after the flood in chapter 9 and verse 7. He says, and as for you, be fruitful and increase in number, multiply on the earth and increase upon it. So, here's what God has established, that we're to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. That's totally the opposite of overpopulation. Okay, so in order to be able to understand what we're dealing with here, the first thing we have to do is turn to the world and say, okay, world, what do you mean by overpopulation? So we look at their information and come up with, because they have defined overpopulation for us. Let's take a look at point number 1. Point number 1 of this footprint on the world that mankind does and we have a problem with, number 1, undesirable condition. That's very interesting. They do not desire the condition, in other words, where the number of humans exceeds the carrying capacity of Earth. Now look at the assumptions here. First of all, do they know the carrying capacity of Earth? Do they know the potential that Earth has? No. And in fact, very little of that has been, some of Earth hasn't even been explored. So, to say that this is an undesirable condition where the number of humans exceeds the carrying capacity of the Earth is an assumption. Well, what are you exactly saying there? Well, here's what they're saying. The fact that we're overpopulated is caused, point number 2, by reduced mortality rate. There's reduced morality too, but reduced mortality rate, meaning we live longer today than we ever did before. Well, that's not true either. People lived to be 1,000 years before the flood, yet God trimmed it down so man cannot live so long as an evil person. Then we have better medical. This means we're keeping people alive that should have died. That we're depleting precious resources. There's only a finite amount that the earth can give us. And because of that, we are depleting it by having too many people here. And look at technology. Technology has made it where we can zoom around the world. I mean, airplanes in the air, taking people from here to there, and we're destroying the ozone, etc. And increase births. There's just too many children going on. Too much of that. Well, what are you talking about? What do you think that all has done to the world? We've got pollution, pollution, pollution. We are polluting the world. Now, is there pollution out there? Yes. Is it because man's alive? No. It's because man doesn't clean up after himself. That's the truth. And we've got garbage. One person can produce so much garbage, it's unbelievable. So we've got pollution, we've got garbage. That means we have man-made climate change. The climate is changing because of all the trees we cut down, because of the way we start our SUVs, because of all this we're having worse hurricanes. Look at the floods over in China. Look at the hurricane hitting Hawaii. Look at all the problems that are going on, the droughts and the cold and the wind and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are the reason that the earth is changing. We're the reason for it. And then what are the solutions? Point number 4. Wow, we've got to cure this. How do we do it? Number 1 is education. Education. We have to give good education. We have to do this because man isn't smart enough. If left alone, man would destroy the earth. So we need to educate them properly. And we need more abortions. Oh, that's not what they call it. They call it family planning. But what it means is we need to destroy more children so we can have less population. And taxes. If we tax people, then they won't buy so much stuff. You know, these jet airplanes and all these cars and all these little things. I mean, a guy who has too much money, he's going to buy all kinds of stuff. And because of that, he's going to use up more of the things that are here, the precious resources and so on that are here. Well, also sex education. You know, if we just train people in how to have sex so they don't produce children, that would work well. In fact, we'll even make it to where we'll hand out things that where they can not get pregnant, where they can have excitement and enjoyment without having to have the other person, the person of the opposite sex around. We're going to make sure people want to have same-sex relationships, and that way we won't have more people. We're going to have to make sure that people understand how to have sex without going anywhere near the part that would make them get pregnant. It's pathetic. And then in order to make sure that we have educated everybody and done well, we're going to have good social marketing. That's the solution. We're going to make sure it's in their face every single day. We're going to have pride marches. We're going to have it in all the movies. We're going to have this sex education in commercials, and in every way we can, we're going to push it in front of their face, especially in schools. We'll start with the children. We'll make sure the children know, and we'll make sure that they grow up to live this life where we do not want to have children, and we can get the numbers down to a manageable amount. You know what we need? We need to do like they did back in France when they overthrew the bourgeois people, all of the people who were in hierarchy, and killed them, cut their necks off, and got rid of them. And they said, now that we are in this condition, what do we do? Here's what we'll do. Hey, here's what we'll do. We'll hire the brightest people among us. And we'll put them in charge, and we'll pay them really well so that they can tell us how to live. And here's what we need more than anything else. We need a person who is greater than mankind, one that has all the answers, one that knows what to do. We're going to hire ourselves a Superman and put him in power. We're going to take him and put him over all of us. You remember what Obama said when they got in power. Now, those whom you needed are here. This is what they thought. We're going to help control everything so that life is great. Well, now that we know what the world thinks, what is the evidence other than the Word of God that shows this is not true? That we're not overpopulated. Remember what God said, increase and fill the earth. I mean, we're supposed to have people every single inch almost. So it's going to continue, and God's going to continue giving increase, and we're going to see more and more and more people. So let's take a look at what the evidence shows. Well, the first argument, there's not enough. There's not enough food. There's not enough to feed all the people. Guess what? The world currently produces enough to feed 10 billion people. And yet, there's only 7 billion people alive now. You know what that means? God is making sure that the ability for us to increase production far exceeds the amount of people who need that production. So God is there right with us, helping us increase as we need to increase. And I guarantee you that if this world was every single inch full of people, we would be producing far more than all the people need because of the God we have. And the second point is people say, well, if there is enough, how come there's still hungry people all over the world? Why is it that there are still people crying for food? In fact, it is so bad that even here in America, there are so many hungry people. You have heard this on the commercials. That there's so many hungry people that they're in such need. Give to this organization so they can help the hungry people even here in America, even in your own community. Let's put up special places for them to go get food. But if that was true, why do we not see starving people walking around? Instead, we have an obesity problem, not a starving problem. Because this is not a natural phenomenon. It's not that people don't have food, but we have political failures. There was a book written one time about Africa and how if Africa turned to the Word of God, they would have a society greater than America. America right now is the standard, even with all that's going on. We still have more than any other country in the world per capita. Now, this guy who wrote this book was almost killed. His family was almost destroyed. Everything he had was destroyed. He was ridiculed and pushed out like crazy. And the reason was because they don't want the truth. They want their own truth. It is political failures, not a natural phenomenon when you have starving children. The reason why there are starving children in Africa is because the parents don't provide for them. And the reason the parents don't provide for them is because the government is such they can't, or because they're too lazy. It's very fascinating, but very true that if a person wants to provide for their family, they can. Point number, we're running out of water. We can't find enough water for people. Don't run your, matter of fact, we've got toilets now that use less water. Don't run your, there was a commercial the other day, don't run your water to rinse off your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. Instead, buy this kind of soap, because it's going to take care of all the dirt in the dishes and all the food on the dishes and everything, and you're going to use less water. And you know what's fascinating about that? Turn off your lights so you use less electricity, and so on and so on and so forth. And the funny thing about that is that when we use less, the companies have to charge more because they're making less money. And they have to turn around somehow and recoup that money. But we're not running out of water. Look, 70% of Earth's surface to the average of 6,000 feet. I can't even think that much. 6,000 feet of water. 70% of the Earth's surface is water. To the point of 6,000 feet on the average. Unbelievable amount of water. And you say to me, yeah, but that's salt water. Oh, no. They have known how to take salt out of the salt water for decades and decades and decades. They've been using that for many years, turning it into sweet tasting, good drinking water. And since 1900, the access of water has increased 7 times faster than the population, which just increased 4 times. Over in Delaware, when I was there was a guy came by and he was showing us how that we could buy a well in in Africa, for $1,000, and it would give water to all the people in that area. And so we did. And people were doing this all over, because $1,000 we could afford, and they would have water instead of having to get it out of ponds or puddles or whatever. And they would have clean, fresh water. They can drill down now and get water even in the Sahara Desert. Look at what Israel's doing over there. In some of the most arid places, they are turning them into lush green lands and producing all kinds of food. The water is available everywhere. We're not running out of water, and you can't get rid of water. It doesn't change. In fact, we make more. The water, according to Solomon in Proverbs, comes up from the ocean into the clouds, comes over the land, rains on the land, and runs into the rivers and back to the sea again. And we can capture part of this, but you know what? It comes into us, and how is it? It stays water. And when it leaves us, it's water, and it turns back into water. There's just no getting rid of the water. And with all that water in the world, did you know we've only explored less than 1% of the ocean's floor? We don't even know what all's out there. It's just fascinating. It's fascinating. And point number 4, the population is growing exponentially, they say. Exponentially. Oh, no. Did you know we peaked in the early 1960s? And that from 1950 to 2000, the growth was 1.76%. But from 2000 to now, it is only 0.77%, meaning the population is so decreased that in some places they are declining in population and looking for more people. Russia right now is paying people to have more than one child. Well, you've got a friend of ours over there, and they've decided to let nature take its course, and they're on their 8th child. Isn't that amazing? Europe is on complete decline. Africa, forget it. They're not even making a blip on the scale. They're not overpopulating. The most places that are having children are developed nations. Interesting, is it not? So what about examples? Examples. Show me something real that I can hang on to. All right. If people were to stand shoulder to shoulder, they could all fit on the island of Zanzibar. Ooh, what a beautiful name. Zanzibar. Where's Zanzibar? Well, it's right there. Off of the coast of Africa. It's not Tanzania. No, it's that little bitty island there, off of Tanzania and Kenya. Zanzibar. It's not Madagascar, but Zanzibar. All 7 billion people could fit in Zanzibar, shoulder to shoulder. Now think about that compared to the rest of the world. You think we're overpopulated? What do you think? All could fit on the island of Zanzibar. And then, if you were to take each person and give them a little house and put them in Texas, they could all fit. And this shows you the relation of the amount of people compared to the other places. But they could all fit in Texas. Now, that's not including having stores and roads and, hospitals and so on and so forth. But all houses could all fit there. You see USA right there? You see Europe? All of Europe. Pretty fascinating, isn't it? All could fit in the state of Texas. And here's probably the most interesting piece of information. Plankton. You know the little krill shrimp that whales eat? Plankton makes up 3 times more biomass than all humans combined. So what are you saying, GW? What about overpopulation? They're screaming about it. They're telling us we're destroying the world. What about it? Overpopulation is debunked. We are not. If all of us could stand on Zanzibar, that ain't much spread across the world. Here's what he says. Go out and multiply and fill the earth. You can't beat God. His truth is the same year 1 or 2020 AD. So let's stay with God. Thank you.